What's up everyone, it's your boy Pav, and before we get started, I just have a quick question for everyone watching. Have you ever wanted wireless earbuds that had quality sound and essential smart tech listening features that were no BS and didn't cost an arm and a leg? If so, today's sponsor Raycon is the answer for you. Thanks to Raycon, you can now pay half the price for the same, if not better quality earbuds. And it's cool because Raycon doesn't outsource the design or the development of their wireless earbuds. Their small but mighty team of design audio engineers cut their teeth at brands like Bose and Peloton and now help create these great affordable wireless earbuds for everyday use, and they come with tons of great features. My favorites being, first off, the noise isolation, which means that when you're using these, you're going to be totally immersed. Second, you get 8 hours of playtime for everyday earbuds, so whether I'm working out or I'm just at home cleaning the house, it doesn't matter, there is never a problem. I love how snug they fit, how discreet they are, I don't gotta worry about them falling down, whereas other brands I have had issues of earbuds falling out in the past, but not with Raycon. So if you want some no BS, affordable, great quality sounding earbuds with tons of features, click the link in the description down below or go to buyraycon.com/wrestlingifs to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Get yourself some quality earbuds at the same time, support the channel. That's buyraycon.com/wrestlingifs to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Shout out to Raycon for sponsoring today's video, but now it's time for today's feature presentation. So I watched every single Money in the Bank pay-per-view so you don't have to, and let's just say it was a very interesting experience. Our journey begins in 2010, and just 4 months after WrestleMania and having Jack Swagger win the Money in the Bank and stink up Friday nights as world champion, they decided to run it back and pretend like that never happened. And in July of that year, live from Kansas City, Missouri, it was the first ever Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which right off the bat begins with a SmackDown Money in the Bank, and yo, it was truly a trip watching these entrances and being back in 2010 once again. From seeing Kofi Kingston run out there to little Dolph Ziggler to babyface 25-year-old Drew McIntyre, everyone was so young, and of course dashing Cody Rhodes with no knee pads just casually walking out for a ladder match because apparently he loves doing this to his knees. I don't know. This was supposed to be the next generation back in 2010, and this is what they started the pay-per-view off with. And the match also had Matt Hardy, who was still dressing like it's 2002, and they also decided to have a ladder match with a Big Show involved, because when I think of ladder matches, I think of this man. But yeah, it was the first Money in the Bank match on a Money in the Bank pay-per-view with a very interesting cast of characters, and it was fire. When you see a ladder match featuring Kane and the Big Show, it really doesn't look good on paper, but having 6 other idiots willing to die definitely makes up for it. And this match was fun. Who would have ever guessed a Money in the Bank ladder match structured around a 40-year-old Big Show would be this good? But nah, he had his own custom ladder, probably made out of vibranium, and next thing you know, halfway through the match, at one point, the fans were even chanting, "Big Show, Big Show."
A few minutes later.
I mean, hey, at least he got a cool ladder, right? I remember being so shocked that Kane won this match back in the day. I don't think there was anyone expecting Kane to win this back in 2010, but they hit us with the plot twist and they pulled a masterclass in booking Kane on this night. Because yes, of course, on the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view, they had Kane win and just an hour later cash that baby in and walk out world champion. And of course, the victim was Rey Mysterio, because you know, Rey Mysterio can't have nice things ever. And this was a low-key genius way to have Kane become champion. So Rey wins his match against Jack Swagger and retains the title, right? Jack Swagger gets cheese, so he beats up Rey after the match. Kane comes out to save the day, and he does. He beats the shit out of Jack Swagger, he gets cheered and everything is good. And then the next thing you know, he comes back with the briefcase, with the full entrance this time, and even a referee, like he wasn't out there just 2 seconds ago, just comes out there, casually beats up poor Rey Mysterio, and wins the title. Listen, if that's not A+ booking, I don't know what is. The rest of the night was solid. The Raw Money in the Bank was pretty good, filled with stars, and Ted DiBiase. You know, maybe if he won this match, he wouldn't be in a jail cell right now for committing high-level fraud. But it was good. Miz walked out the Money in the Bank winner and set everything up for that 2010-2011 Miz main event run, and it all began here. The main event of this show was a match that I genuinely had zero memory of. WWE Champion Sheamus versus John Cena in a steel cage match. and it was fine, right? It was alright, but it was just there to push the Nexus storyline. And also, I'm gonna be honest, I love John Cena, everyone knows that, but I hate Orange 2010 John Cena. I genuinely despise Orange John Cena. 2010 John Cena was just not it, let's be real. Overall though, the first Money in the Bank was no doubt a success. 2 awesome ladder matches, a cash-in on the same night, Nexus turning up, and as far as 2010 goes, it was no doubt a fun night, and it was clear that Money in the Bank had a future as a pay-per-view. It was the one gimmick pay-per-view that actually made sense. We move on to 2011, and what do I even say that hasn't been said before? First of all, it is a tragedy and it is a travesty that one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time had this as the pay-per-view poster. Really? Really? Money in the Bank 2011 was and is regarded as one of the best pay-per-views ever, and everyone knows how epic the main event was, you know, the 5-star classic, the match that still holds up, the match with so much electricity, but this show top to bottom was really special. The SmackDown Money in the Bank was a banger, okay? The early 2010s mid-card didn't really produce many long-lasting stars, but hey, they were willing to die every single night. Including Sin Cara getting his back broken, or Justin Gabriel being a 450 splash merchant, and at the end Daniel Bryan winning had the crowd absolutely erupt, and it was just awesome seeing Bryan go from being fired in 2010, not even being on last year's show, to 1 year later winning the Money in the Bank. Nobody ever expected this. That's what made the night special. Whatever we didn't expect happened. I mean, yo, this was the night that Christian finally became a world champion for more than 2 days. The unluckiest main eventer of all time finally won the big one. Kinda. By winning, I mean making Randy Orton get himself disqualified in a match where the stipulation was if Randy Orton got disqualified, he would lose the title. But because it was the unlucky idiot who always choked in the big matches for the title, this ending worked. And even though he was basically dead at the end of the match, the fact that he still walked out champion made this such a legendary moment for every Christian fan out there. Add the chaotic Raw Money in the Bank, plus of course the iconic main event that has been talked about to death, I can confirm that Money in the Bank 2011 still holds up. It is still a classic and honestly will forever be timeless. But let's move on to 2012, the third Money in the Bank pay-per-view live from Phoenix, Arizona. And you know what, this was alright. 2010 felt special because it was the first. 2011 was just legendary. 2012 was okay. There was nothing too crazy on this show, but seeing Dolph Ziggler win that briefcase was such a fun moment, and this was truly Dolph's prime, and it's such a shame. What could have been with Dolph Ziggler, everything was right there for this guy. CM Punk and Daniel Bryan had a great no DQ match filled with all the AJ Lee drama you could possibly imagine, and John Cena won an alright 5-man Money in the Bank for some reason. It was alright, but this was the first time in my binge watching where the pay-per-view I was watching kinda started dragging on. Like nothing really special happened. Like yay, I'm out here watching Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio while my friends are out partying. I love my life. But once it was time for the 2013 show, I was back to being amped. I, for some reason, remember this show vividly, and what I remember is the 2 Money in the Bank matches being absolute bangers. In 2013, man, Damien Sandow was one of the most hyped up young wrestlers on the roster, and it was so wild to go back and watch this because nobody gives a about Damien Sandow in 2023. But nah, in 2012 and 2013, the mid-card was stacked with such great talent and they killed it. And out of all the Money in the Bank matches I watched so far, this was no doubt the best one. And what made it so fun was there were no faces in this match. It was all heels just running around, but the crowd ate it up. And let me tell you, Cody Rhodes was the star of this match. If there was ever a time to elevate Cody Rhodes to the main event, it was in 2013. The crowd wanted him to win so bad. And then later on in the year, he had the classic matches against The Shield. Cody in 2013 was so close to breaking through, closer than I ever remembered. And that was the biggest takeaway from Money in the Bank 2013 for me. The other one, they tried to have Curtis Axel be a Paul Heyman guy. Yeah. Thanks, bro. Beside that, another fun part of going back to this year was watching AJ Lee versus Caitlyn for the first time in 10 years and instantly remembering how awesome these two women were. Before Stephanie McMahon invented women's wrestling, these two in 2013 were going off more than anyone ever expected from the divas in the early 2010s, and it was just so cool to see this again. Oh, and by the way guys, it's 2013 and they're still doing the whole Alberto Del Rio world title thing. And remember how last year it was so awesome that Dolph won the briefcase? Well yeah, 1 year later, after having an iconic cash-in, he's no longer the world champion and never will be ever again. That's the thing about binge watching these shows. After a few shows, you notice so much stuff, so many wasted opportunities, so many faces that come and go, like seeing Cody Rhodes be in 3 Money in the Bank matches, clearly get better every single year, and finally reach a point where the fans are behind him, and you know it's not gonna mean anything. It's tough seeing Dolph Ziggler have the world in his hands 1 year, and then the next year he's going straight back to the mid-card. However, what is often forgotten about this show is the awesome Mark Henry versus John Cena match. Everyone knows about the retirement angle. I literally cried watching it happen live back in the day, but people, including myself, sleep on the actual match itself so hard. Even though everyone knew Cena was winning, this was a great match fueled by the crowd going absolutely nuts. I felt like I was watching an 80s Hulk Hogan match being played out, and it worked very well. The main event of the show was probably the most stacked Money in the Bank ladder match they could have done. Randy Orton, Christian, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Rob Van Dam coming back, and Sheamus. For the first time in the history of the pay-per-view, and honestly the last time as well, the Money in the Bank match felt like the match on the pay-per-view. They even called it the Money in the Bank All-Stars match. All the big boys were in it, all the main eventers, and it was so hyped going into it. And they absolutely delivered in 2013 and probably even more so in 2023. From Heyman turning on Punk, Bryan having the crowd in a mosh pit during his comeback, RVD was just so high. RKOs everywhere. Sheamus basically died, by the way. This was such a good match and overall such a good show. Going into this, the last thing I expected was to become a Money in the Bank 2013 sympathizer, but here I am, such an underrated show, and this was a blast to go back to. But Money in the Bank 2014, the following year, that was not a blast to go back to, as this was where the depression really hit me. Although it started off well with the Usos versus the Wyatts, which was a fresh match and a really good match, and then they even had a banger of a Money in the Bank match. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the post-Shield era. And in this match, not only did we get insane spots you expect, bodies being destroyed, the whole match was tied together with the Rollins and Ambrose feud, with Ambrose finally getting his hands on Rollins just weeks after the Shield breakup. Seth Rollins winning was the obvious and perfect choice, so in that sense it was great watching this for the first hour, and for a second I was like, yeah, I'm pretty nostalgic about 2014 WWE. Well, then the show kept going and going, and all I saw was Damien Sandow, last year's Money in the Bank winner, was demoted back to the mid-card doing impersonations and losing to Adam Rose. And if that wasn't enough, Cody Rhodes, the most over man in last year's Money in the Bank, was now dressed up like this. Bro, what? Layla versus Summer Rae, a green Rusev versus a very green Big E, and to cap it all off, we had an 8-man ladder match for the vacant world title in which nobody involved wanted anything to do with the ladder, so they kind of just punched each other and brawled for 20 minutes. What? Was it the worst show ever? No. Was it the worst Money in the Bank pay-per-view up until that point? Definitely. I was bored, I was cranky, I forgot how bad 2014 was at sometimes, and watching this I just needed a break, and I needed a hero, and I desperately needed 2015 to be good. After 2 days of not watching any wrestling and being a normal person, not a dumb wrestling fan, I was back like a crackhead with Money in the Bank 2015 live from Columbus, Ohio. A show that for some reason I had forgot all about until I turned it on. I needed something to bring me back to life, shout out to Evanescence, and that is exactly what this show did. The show started off with the Money in the Bank match, and at this point I was basically desensitized to them, and it didn't help that this match ended up being the most forgettable whatever one of them all. And things didn't look too good when I had to spend 10 minutes of my life watching Big Show versus Ryback, but I don't think you understand the level of hype I reached when it was time for John Cena versus Kevin Owens. This match, this feud, this series was a breath of fresh air in 2015. I mean, look at the shows we had been watching, the matches that we were used to. This was a new era. This wasn't Adam Rose versus Damien Sandow, nah. This was Kevin Steen in the WWE having a ROH 2008 match with John Cena of all people. And Cena was in this match out here getting pissed, going full Superman mode. Kevin Owens just popped into the main roster out of nowhere and showed the world that he is that guy. And following up their banger from the month before, this match was so special, and I swear I appreciate it so much more now, because it was so different at the time from what we were used to. But now by 2015, the roster was getting so stacked that we were getting stuff like this in the middle of the show, and it just hit different, and it still does. I'm not saying it's the best, but it was my favorite match in the Money in the Bank journey so far, no doubt. And the wild part was they still had a banger main event up their sleeve, Ambrose versus Rollins in a ladder match for the world title. We finally reached a new generation in the journey. No more Cena in the title picture, no more old stars. It was the changing of the guard, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Just when things were getting stale at last year's show, here we were the next year with Ambrose and Rollins feuding, but now in the main event, now for the title, having ladder matches, putting their bodies on the line. This show was very fun. As up and down as 2015 was in the WWE, Money in the Bank was definitely a highlight, and it was just so fresh compared to 2014, and the momentum definitely carried over to 2016, live from Las Vegas, Nevada. The 2016 show was just... After a down year, the Money in the Bank match was back. Dean Ambrose got the win after some insane spots, and just look at the quality of wrestlers they had in here. Owens, Sami Zayn, Jericho, Ambrose, Cesaro, even Del Rio was popping off. Once again, everything felt so fresh compared to the last 2 years, and even when we had quality back in 2013 for example, it just felt so much important here. And speaking of quality and fresh, how about welcome to the Money in the Bank journey, AJ Styles. Imagine telling someone in 2014 that just in 2 years you're gonna get Kevin Owens versus Cena and then AJ Styles versus Cena. What once seemed like dream matches, pipe dreams, were now becoming reality. Gone were the Rybacks and the Big Shows and Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rios and world title matches for the 100th time. It was AJ Styles versus John Cena type beats. And this was mind-blowing to see this happen, and even though the first match here was nothing compared to the matches they would have in the future, this was still monumental, seeing AJ Styles in the ring with WWE's top guy, out wrestling him and kicking off a legendary trilogy. The main event of the night was also special. Seth Rollins defeating Roman Reigns during the prime of anti-Roman Reigns hate. This was a treat to go back and watch. Seth Rollins back from injury, sent from the heavens above to save us from Roman Reigns. With so much drama, because deep down everyone watching was like, of course the company is going to make Roman Reigns win. But not after a big time main event, Rollins pulled out the win, and just to make the night even more epic, how about the third Shield brother cashing in on the same night? Yo, this was just an electrifying show. Everyone looks back at 2016 with such fondness, and for good reason, and this show is a prime reason why. There is so much excitement in here, so much happening, so many new faces in the company, and as a result, we got one of the best Money in the Bank shows, and like I said, this was the night where Money in the Bank became a top 4 show. And when I finished watching this, as someone who didn't remember anything from next year's show, I couldn't wait to see what they did to follow it up in 2017. And yeah, they followed it up with the worst Money in the Bank pay-per-view of all time. Yo, it doesn't get more typical WWE than this. Let's establish a pay-per-view as big time and let's follow it up with absolute garbage. I mean, the show started off fine. We had the first ever women's Money in the Bank, you know, solid for what it was, no problem. But after that, it just went downhill. Usos versus New Day, you know what, let's have a count out. Naomi is a pretty cool champion, let's have her wrestle Lana on a pay-per-view. You know what, thank you guys, nice one. And do I even have to say anything for 20 minutes of Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton for the title? Yo, if you were to do a drinking game of take a shot every time there was a rest hold in this match, you would die. And lastly, at the end, we finally did get a banger. We finally got something special with Owens, Zayn, Nakamura, Styles, and Ziggler when they went mental in the ladder match to close the show. The issue was, they went mental just for Baron Corbin to win. Nah, this was disgusting. 2017 WWE was not good, especially after WrestleMania, but this pay-per-view was just garbage, and it was very hard to watch. But yo, nobody suffered more than me having to watch Money in the Bank 2018 and 2023 because for some reason this pay-per-view was 4 hours long. And my brothers in Christ, my brothers in whatever, this is where things got rough. To follow up on 2017, I had to sit there and watch Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass, which was fine, it was okay, but since it's a 4-hour show, they had Bryan wrestle Cass for 17 minutes. Bobby Lashley versus Sami Zayn on paper sounds so good till you actually watch it, and it's Sami Zayn running around for 5 minutes and then dying and then getting injured, and somehow after a squash match, both men came out looking like idiots. The women's Money in the Bank was pretty good, and Alexa winning and cashing in on the same night against Nia Jax was beautiful, but you know what wasn't beautiful? Roman Reigns versus Jinder Mahal on a pay-per-view for 16 minutes. What did we ever do to deserve this torture? And if that wasn't enough, Asuka versus Carmella made me want to shoot myself. And that's the thing, as good as Styles versus Nakamura in the last man standing match ended up being way better than I remembered, this show was 4 hours long and it was a drag. And this is where the journey, this is where these shows just stopped being good shows. They would have 1 or 2 solid matches on a pay-per-view, but just would surround them by complete garbage, and honestly it makes sense. That was the WWE from 2017 till around 2021. In those years it was like impossible to come across a top to bottom good pay-per-view. But seeing the change in quality of everything from 15 and 16 to 17 and 18 just back to back, it blew my mind. Like, what kind of drugs was Vince on during this time? And 2019 was not that much better. It's like, hey, here's Rollins versus AJ in a banger. Let's have one of the funnest Money in the Bank matches ever. But let's ruin it with Brock Lesnar just walking in and winning. And hey, the rest of the card is the most forgettable compilation of matches ever. But hey, Bayley won, guys. You can't complain. I don't know. I don't know. From 2017 to 2021, the company forgot how to have pay-per-views. Pay-per-views stopped feeling special. They just became formalities. And as a result, they became so boring. So even Money in the Bank, which was so fun for so many years, it suffered. Somehow they made the yearly pay-per-view filled with ladders and just mayhem bad. And of course, it didn't help that eventually people like Otis and Baron Corbin winning the briefcase just lowered the hype. The value of the briefcase went down. Rollins and Ambrose were winning and cashing it in the years prior. They were changing the game with the briefcase. And by the end of the decade, none of this mattered. There were no big cash-ins, there was nothing of value, it just became a stopgap before SummerSlam. There were no big matches on the shows, there's no Punk versus Cena or Rollins versus Reigns. Instead, here's Jinder Mahal. And listen, I'm Punjabi, so I love Jinder Mahal. But why is Jinder Mahal on my screen? So yeah, after Money in the Bank became a top 4 pay-per-view around 2015 and 16, the next 4 shows took the entire aura out of the event real quick. And we were left with, oh yay, it's Money in the Bank. Nobody cares. But luckily for us, in 2021, after 4 years of being in the mud, the magic at Money in the Bank was finally back. When the WWE was going to make its return to full live crowd pay-per-views, they knew what to go with, and they came back with, in my opinion, a modern classic pay-per-view. I totally forgot that we had Charlotte versus Rhea on this show. I had zero memory of this, but watching this back after their Mania match this year, you can see the elite chemistry they have, and these ladies killed it back in 2021. The crowd went from chanting "We want Becky" when the match started, and by the end they were chanting "This is awesome." And yo, the Money in the Bank match, you guys already know that match is considered a top 5 Money in the Bank all time, more or less. And I totally see why. Kevin Owens and Morrison risking their lives, Riddle becoming Randy Orton, and a crowd that is so hungry for the action. Seth Rollins, Ricochet, Drew McIntyre, everyone's tweaking, and it had such a satisfying ending. And after a year of over empty arena matches and Thunderdomes, this was such a feel-good night, and this was the match where I was like, yo, I love wrestling. And what a special moment it was with Edge versus Roman Reigns, Edge getting the love from the live crowd, and at the end, John Cena coming back and just blowing the roof off the arena, his first appearance in over a year. And we just needed this so bad in 2021, but it's not a show that's special because, you know, it took place after the pandemic and everything. No, even in 2023, just from a show, just quality wise, this was fun. This is what a Money in the Bank pay-per-view should be. This is the pay-per-view that reminded us of the 2011s and the 2016s and even the 2013s. This showed that Money in the Bank is a top-tier pay-per-view. It was a show that put the event back on the map and put the company back on track coming out of the pandemic. This show was such a success and the event's aura was back so strong, they even announced Money in the Bank 2022 was going to be in Las Vegas in Allegiant Stadium. 40,000 people in the stadium to watch this event that all started back in 2010. The issue was though, they ended up booking it the same night as the UFC event, so that wasn't gonna happen. They weren't gonna get 40,000 people in there and they ended up moving it, and once they moved it, they went back to treating it like a B show and it was horrible. So let's just pretend the 2022 show never happened, because I'm gonna be honest, I'm not watching that. Okay, this is enough wrestling for me. I'm done. The last thing I need right now is Austin Theory's face. Let's go out on a high with John Cena coming back in one of the most hype returns of all time. So yeah, I binge watched 12 Money in the Bank pay-per-views in a span of 5 days, and surprisingly, I'm not depressed. I still like wrestling. That's a relief. I was worried about that going in, and I can't lie, it was a fun journey. It was so nostalgic seeing the younger faces in the beginning and seeing them older and better as main eventers. Seeing the changing of the era side by side like that, like obviously we experienced it when it happened, but it's such a cool experience watching it in a matter of days. But one thing is for sure, it's clear that when done right, Money in the Bank always has the potential to be pay-per-view of the year. You got ladders, you put a few good matches on it, it's guaranteed to be a banger. And there is no reason for it to not be every single year. To close things off, here are my awards for this little journey. The best Money in the Bank pay-per-view of all time goes to 2011. As we all expected, I think this is pretty unanimous. The most underrated Money in the Bank pay-per-view of all time goes to 2013, as I'm officially a 2013 Money in the Bank sympathizer. The worst Money in the Bank show though, no doubt, 2017, that was genuinely depressing. My favorite Money in the Bank ladder match, this one was kind of hard. There was 2013 that was fire, the 2011 ones were good, even the first one with Kane tweaking was really good, but I gotta go with 2016. That was the one rewatching that really blew me away. And my favorite match of the journey has to be Kevin Owens versus John Cena. Not saying it's the best, I think we all know what the best one is, but it's definitely my favorite. So yeah, I binge watched all the Money in the Bank pay-per-views so you don't have to, and now you know what to watch and what not to watch and what you may have missed. That was way funner than I expected. It's your boy Pav, aka Wrestlingifs, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys soon with more content coming very soon. Take it easy guys. Later.